And now it's more or less like my wife's like, why do you do that? Like, why are you trying to torture yourself? Whether it's going for some ridiculous run or simple things like ice baths or whatever it is. Like, I just like to do hard things. And I think the challenge of business is a nonstop challenge that you're going to deal with and you're ever going to be evolving. And so that's probably what my motivation is. Like, hey, like, how do we get to this spot? How difficult is it going to be in business? And let's see how we can figure it out. And let's go for it.
You said simple ice bath. I've never encountered a simple ice bath in my life, dude. um, but all of those things, I think, contribute to your success in business, because if we can get ourselves to do hard things on a regular basis, then when we step into the office or step on the football field, doing hard things is just second nature. You don't second guess it. You don't get emotional about doing the hard thing. You just step up and you do it. It's a muscle to be flexed. All right, Blake, welcome to the show.
What's up, Will? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, Blake, Southwest Minnesota State Mustang standout, fellow receiver. You made your way to Sioux Falls, played for the Sioux Falls Storm for many years, and then ended up being a coach there, and then ended up finding your way into the payment processing business. What attracted you to Sioux Falls outside of football?
Well, when I was coming out of college, obviously everybody's dream is to chase the NFL thing. And when my
Mm-hmm.
coach brought me in and was like, hey, we had a team call about you, you're like, oh my God, didn't see that coming. I'm at Southwest Minnesota State. So you go through that process, obviously didn't make it in the NFL. And then so you're kind of sitting there waiting for a CFL team or looking at the different indoor options.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about to sign with this team out of Dallas. I knew hardly anything about indoor football at the time. And I just thought about it and I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm pretty sure the team in South Dakota is pretty good, the Storm. And
Mm-hmm.
so I called my agent up and was like, hey, can you call them, see if I can, go play there? It's close to home. I'm from South Dakota. That just makes way more sense. And so he called them up and they offered me a contract. And so that's kind of the reason that I made my way to Sioux Falls. And it was the beginning of 2011.
Wow, wow. Well, let's touch on the piece of your college standout, eh, obviously playing football, and then you don't make the NFL, because so many players go through this. I went through this, and it's like it's really hard when this dream you've been working towards for the last 15 years of your life just comes to a complete halt in regards to not getting selected to play in the NFL. What was that like for you, and how did you kind of deal with it?
Yeah, it was really weird because obviously I was a small town kid that went to a small school and had a lot of success my last couple of years there. So you get a little bit of attention that kind of gets your hopes up. Like, okay, maybe I got a chance, right? Like I've
Mm-hmm.
seen Wes Welker, maybe I can do what he does, right? So you get this hopes up and it's probably for me, it wasn't like this 4-year thing where I thought I was going to go to the NFL. It was kind of a short span where, hey, I've got this very short possibility of making this dream happen. I know it's still a long shot. But then when I started to realize like that's probably not going to happen, I still wanted to play football. I'd put so much work into chasing it at the next level that I didn't want to quite give that part up and then you're also dealing with like this identity crisis where all you've known for the last, especially in college, like you live, eat, and breathe football. All you've known has been a football player. So now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where do I like find that drive and all of those pieces that goes into being a football player? Like, where am I going to get that fulfillment from? And that's just where I saw the opportunity for the Storm. Like right away, I was like, okay, I'll go try this out. We'll see what it's all about. And then quickly when I got there, I was like, man, one, this is really cool. Two, these guys are way better than I thought they were that are playing for the Sioux
Mm-hmm.
Falls Storm. And like with Coach Riggs and everybody, like the culture that was built through the Storm was just a really good environment for me. And then the other piece of it that I think came from playing indoor football was I was in a new community and obviously I needed to figure out like what am I going to do in life because I'm obviously not going to become super wealthy playing indoor football. And so I got to
Mm.
figure out how to pay the bills, and let's figure out how I can pay for my apartment rent to start with. So, so you started applying for like every job in the world. And I found one that was in a sales role and that was flexible enough to allow me to play football still. And the other parts of it was what the Sioux Falls Storm really did for me was they were so involved in the community and so connected and had so many different sponsors. It just gave me a good platform to get more connected within the Sioux Falls community as I was going into my career, to then get to know who the movers and shakers were of this community, and just really help me, I guess, launch my career in Sioux Falls and getting to know the area, because I wasn't originally from Sioux Falls.
Sure, sure. Well, a couple things there. Coach Riggs, absolute class act. I mean,
Yep.
what he was able to do with the Sioux Falls Storm for all of those years was so cool. And he created an environment for players to thrive. And I love his coaching style because he's not like necessarily an a-hole screamer or whatever, but when he says something, he gets people to listen to him. And I just, I love the culture that he was able to build there. And obviously you guys were super successful over the years. And rewinding, because I was in a similar boat, tried to make the NFL. And once I didn't get to that call, I was lost. I was depressed. I'm like, this was all I've known. This was where I put all of my eggs in that basket to make it to that level. And I think many guys who play college football don't understand the opportunities outside of the NFL, especially back then. Now you have the UFL and the CFL are more prominent, internationals growing. But back then when we were coming out, it was like, what the hell, where do we go? Like, I want
Yeah.
to keep playing. And so, you going indoor, me going international, we found a way to continue playing the sport that we love, continue pursuing our dream. And I think for the both of us, it set us up to thrive post football. And so, you being in Sioux Falls, how did you get into the payment processing space? You talked about the Storm setting you up with the network, with the contacts here in Sioux Falls. Describe that transition.
Yeah. So like I said, was I applied for every single job out there. Like anything in sales is kind of what the direction that I wanted to go, mostly because that's where you had the most flexibility.
Mm.
Because obviously I still wanted to play for the Storm, and there's travel, there's practice, you got to go to trainers. It's still all the things that you're dealing with in college. It's just now you got to have a big boy job to
Mm.
supplement the rest of the things that you have going on in life. And so once I applied for this job, it was like credit card processing. I didn't even know what that was at the time. Like there wasn't Square wasn't everywhere, Stripe wasn't everywhere. So it wasn't just a common practice that most people knew what credit card processing was unless you were like a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the interview. Uh, you know, they were going to pay me, so I was like, well, I need to take that job. So I jumped into it, and part of the job process or the interview process, which was really strange. I'm not sure how they necessarily got away with this, but you had to set 20 appointments before you got the job. So before you had any training, before you had, you know, anybody really explaining to you what it was. Like I got like a little pamphlet that said, hey, this is what we do. And now go out and set 20 appointments. Once you have those appointments set, then we'll have a manager come help you run those. And so you don't know what a good appointment is, what a bad appointment is. But I knew a bunch of people that were involved with the Storm. And so I went and spoke with them that were, maybe they were a business in town that gave us food vouchers. They did meals for the team. Some of the people that were involved with the Storm were business owners, whether they're coaches or, people that coach Riggs or somebody else on the team knew that maybe would do an introduction. I knew where I got my haircut, and I knew where like a few other places that I frequented in Sioux Falls. And so you went out and you kind of scrambled to get 20 appointments together to get that job. But that's kind of where, back with what the Storm did for me, was they just got me a little more connected. Like if I didn't have those connections, just to get 20 appointments here in Sioux Falls in like a week's time would have been very, very, very difficult for me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I got into the payment space, kind of by accident, right? Just applying for a million jobs, didn't know what it was, saw the opportunity, and then had a lot of success those first, few months that it kind of got a little bit of an addiction there. And then I was like, okay, now I gotta really learn this and perfect this craft. So that's how I fell into it.
So then you're building up success, you're making sales, things are going well, you're still playing and then eventually coaching. What inspired you to co-found phase 3, to go out on your own, to take that leap of faith, to trust your own abilities? Like that's a scary, scary thing, especially when you have this significant revenue that's coming in that's supporting you in your lifestyle, right? So
Yeah.
what encouraged you to take that leap of faith?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little backstory on like that process, because it wasn't, hey, I'm busting my butt as a sales rep for a couple of years, then we jump into a new company. We had Dustin and I, my business partner, had both started at Heartland at about the same time, the job that I was just telling you about. Um, they sold in 2016 for $4.3 billion. Um,
Whoa.
we were still sales reps there. We didn't get any of those billions, unfortunately. So, but after that sold, like 6 months later, we got reached out to by the guy that did sell it and just said, hey, I'm thinking about starting up a new startup. And this was 2016, 2017. And would you guys want to come on and help me, grow this business? And so we were like, yeah, we want to jump into that. And so we jumped into that. Now that was a little bit different of a startup because there was obviously a lot of funding behind that one. But it
Mhm.
gave us a taste of the startup culture because we went from a big brand now to a brand that no one knows about. There's no business out there, business owners out there that know it. We don't have all of the systems perfected. We're just getting a website. There's no social, there's none of this. And so we got to go out and feel like, okay, what does it feel like building a team? We took on a little bit more leadership roles. We got to understand the behind the scenes on operations and all of that piece. And so we did that for about 3.5 years. COVID hits. In the end of COVID, Dustin and I kind of were talking about, hey, should we go out and do our own thing? We go on vacation. While on vacation, you think of crazy ideas, and we decided, hey, what the hell? Let's go for it. Um, and so that's how we launched it. I mean, it wasn't like some mad scientist plan that was sat down. It was, hey, we've had success as individual contributors. Then we jumped to in the startup, took on more leadership role, kind of learned how that world works, and then decided that, hey, I think this is something that we can do on our own. And there's an opportunity to really do things a little differently than what we've seen at these big companies, like take some of the good that they've done and take some of the bad things that we don't think are great and that maybe we can do a little better and combine that into phase 3 and let's roll with it. And so that's how we got going.
Well, it's no shock. It's not shocking as to why you guys are so successful right now, because you were able to experience the large corporate entity when you were first coming out, getting into the business, and to see what that felt like to be in those operations and to have everything mapped out, processes, systems, and then to transition to more of the startup phase where you're wearing more hats, you're having to be more on the ground floor, like you said, no social, no website. I mean, you're really creating a brand. And I feel like the combination to those two is a dream-like scenario for any entrepreneur to be able to see like the corporate, like this is the end goal of where we're going over the long term, but then actually having the skills in the near term to launch a business and to wear 10 hats and to really be a founder and go after it. So it sounds like those two experiences set you up perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge for us. Like it gave us like, there's times where you think back like, man, where we're at right now that we've accomplished in 4 years, like what if we would have done that like 5 years before that, right? And now where we would be at. But we wouldn't have been able to get to where we were so fast the last 4 years if we didn't have that 7 years of experience, before that. Like that set us up for success, out the gates when we started phase 3.
Absolutely. I mean, I look back to when I started Podium, my football recruiting business back in 2015. I hadn't been a part of a larger organization. I hadn't even been in a startup yet. And that really hurt me and the business as we were starting to grow. Cause it's like, well, I think this is the right thing to do. Right.
Yeah,
And like, I don't know how to make a marketing deck. I better figure it out. I don't know how to make a pro forma. I better figure it out. And obviously, there's value in learning how to do those things because you're just forced to do it. But I would have been a lot better off maybe being a part of a startup or being part of a corporation where I could see like, okay, this is the blueprint. So I'm not reinventing the wheel, learning all this shit on my own.
exactly. Like, and the other part of it, back when you started Podium, there was an AI where you could jump over into Chat GPT and just throw it together quick for you. So there are some
Exactly.
advantages now. But yeah, that experience that we had was priceless. On how it helped us, launch into, running the business. Now, was there still things that we didn't know at the time when we launched phase 3 that we had to quickly learn? Absolutely. But yeah, it gave us a good platform to get rolling.
So just describe phase three for the audience. I mean, what is phase three? What do you guys all do? Who do you service?
Yeah, so phase 3 is a credit card processing company at our core. And so we service, any small to medium sized business that essentially accepts a credit card or even an ACH. Now, what we really do well is we create technology around the payments factor to go in and help these businesses, whether that's a restaurant point of sale, retail point of sale. And there are still a decent amount of businesses that are still just using like your standard credit card terminal, which those things have evolved and are ever changing. But our core business is, as of right now, is credit card processing. So we work with small to medium sized businesses essentially everywhere in every industry if they take a credit card payment.
Interesting. And how did you get into, or how did you manage the development of your platform? Because again, when I started Podium, we weren't tech savvy in the regards of building these awesome platforms, but we thought we were, and we wasted a lot of money doing so, right? And
Yeah.
so how did you manage the development of your platform, which is like the core of what you guys do? I mean, it's a little risky if you're not a tech guy yourself.
Yeah. So the interesting part about our business is there's only really, anymore a handful of platforms that processing actually takes place on.
Mhm.
So we have to go work with what's called a sponsor bank. So they're the ones that are actually um, directly registered with the card brands, so Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. And so the money essentially flows through them. And then we use a couple different processing rails. There's been a ton of acquisitions like the last 10 years. So there's really only 5 of those. And so we're essentially operating on those processing rails. So phase 3 is like Square, some of the big ones that like Toast Point of Sale is another big company out there. Like all of those companies that are doing processing are essentially operating on those processing rails. Like even
Mhm.
Stripe, when they first started, were using those processing rails. They have developed their own now. But with those acquisitions, we use those. So we didn't have to develop anything there. And then even on the software side of it, like when we were going like our first probably 18 months, we were essentially reselling third party softwares that we would set up as vendors because one, we didn't have the upfront capital to then just spend 40, 50, 60, $70,000 a month to get it developed, and that's going to take 12, 18, 24 months, however long. So we were really dependent on our first 18 months to 24 months on third party software. Now since then, we found some really good product teams, guys, that we just have to put a lot of trust in to
Mhm.
create the products that we want to, obviously have in house and full control of to sell. But yeah, out the gates, we had to find really good vendors. And that's the other part of we'd been in the industry for 7 years. Like I had good relationships with other vendors out there that we could resell those products to our customers and then capture the payment processing revenue on it.
Interesting, interesting. And I can only imagine it's a super competitive industry. So how do you match up against large companies processing billions of dollars like the Square, like the Toast? I mean, what sets Phase Three apart, especially locally when you're going to these local medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, so 15 years ago, it would have been really hard to compete with the big boys. I feel like that's flip flopped almost now because one, these acquisitions and the like, we can go in and usually get like a better rate than pretty much all of the big guys anymore because the big guys are just always trying to increase their rates because they can't grow fast enough anymore. So, like, let's say they have a million merchants and they have a, just for easy math, they've got a 10% attrition rate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they have to bring on 10,000 new customers a month just to break even with where their previous revenue was. That's not
Wow.
even growth, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what happens so often in these big publicly traded companies is there's always these rate increases. And you'll see it, I mean, even with like Netflix and some of these other companies, but in the payments world, it's like crazy because they kind of got you handcuffed. You got your payments integrated into everything. And to get their earnings per share up, like they're going to do payment or price increases. So that's a huge differentiator for us is like when you come to us, like there's not a contract, you're not going to run into price increases, like little things like that are just important. And then the other big part of like what we do that sounds really simple, it's such a relationship game, which sounds kind of crazy because it's payments. But there was this monster study done, and they showed that like the main reason people still switch credit card processing is due to relationships. And so we have a very good team in house. And like phase three, like I say this, and we'll talk about this here in a bit, like just on building a team, but like you're only as good as the people that you have around you. And we've got just the best like customer service team, the best POS techs that go out and create these solid relationships. And then our sales team, like everything they do is based on relationships and trust. And so we have to make sure we're doing the right thing for our customers. And that's really what separates us from a lot of the competitors out there because they're going to get rate increases. They're going to stick them in crappy contracts, just little things like that just are a huge differentiator for us.
Interesting. Well, I can't imagine that Square has thousands of salespeople across the United States going, door to door, trying to sell their product or even just manage the relationships. Like and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like their marketing just comes from them being this big brand that everyone knows, and then they just market online and people sign up with them from there. I mean, is that what it is?
Yeah, like that. There's a couple big competitors. I mean, Square's grown right away. They were like micro merchant type accounts where they would be, um, small businesses that maybe are going to like a craft fair or running a few transactions here or there. And I would say like the last 4 or 5 years, they've made a pretty big growth into like the mid-size businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they don't really have sales reps out anywhere. I mean, theirs is 100% like a product led growth. Like they've put a ton of money into trying to create the best product. Um, and with that, like they just went through a price increase and they went through two in the last 3 years. And so when it starts to be eating, an extra like 0.5% or percent of the business's revenue is going from payments. That's a big part. And then the customer service part, like if you're trying to go through Square, and like Square has a lot of very cool things and they're a good fit for a lot of customers. But if you run a really big transaction and they want to hold your funds, they might hold your funds for 180 days. And that's just something like small businesses can't live with the processor holding onto their funds for 180 days. So those are huge things that separate us. And like, we don't like to say anything bad. Like Square's got a really cool product and they're going to continue to do well, but there's just little things that they're not right for every customer where we try to come in and help them out.
Yeah. And in fact, real life story of that happening actually this year at our All-Star game down in Miami. We only do a couple events a year. So like during those times, we get a huge influx of revenue into the company. And then other times it's a lot slower. And so what's the other, it's Square, and what's like the other?
Stripe's a really big one.
Stripe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stripe held the money for days. And we
Yep.
needed this money to organize the camp, buy jerseys, buy food for the athletes. And it was frozen. It was absolute BS. So real life testimony should have had phase 3 in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's all too common, and like their underwriting process is a little backwards. So there's a lot of risk in credit card payments, which we don't need to go down the channel of how that all works. But that's the reason they're holding that money for 180 days is because those customers could technically file a credit card dispute, and then if you don't have the money in your account, then Stripes out that money, and so that's the reason they hold it to get past the credit card dispute timeline.
Mm,
But they do their underwriting backwards. So like it's so easy to sign up, but anybody in the world can sign up. And so we verify that like you're a real business and like, hey, how are you operating your business? That way we can, fund you a lot faster. And then if you do have like this massive influx of volume, like we're just going to reach out to you and say, hey, you ran $50,000 yesterday, or hey, you had a monster like transaction. Like, is that real? And then if like you verify it, then we'll fund you. So those are just a few of the things that are a little different.
well, it's a lot different because you're actually
Yeah.
calling them instead of like having this automation where it just red flags it and then I can't get a hold of anyone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you guys are better on that front. And so you started this thing only 4 years ago?
Yeah. So we launched, so you have to do this registration process. It's like we officially like started our business in 2020, but
Mm-hmm.
launched in March of 2021 after our registration with the car brands and our sponsor bank
Mm.
all got approved. And so, yeah, launched in 2021, and it's been off to the races since then, man.
4 years into it, and you guys are all over the US now. I mean, how many states are you in?
I don't have that exact number. I mean, we're primarily upper Midwest, but we're probably in about 25 to 28 states right now. And we just um, we're making a couple big moves to really expand our outside sales channel. And so in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll probably bring on right around like this month, we brought on 15 sales reps.
Wow.
That will probably bring on about 100 over the next year. And with that, I mean, in the past we've done this a couple different times, so we've got pretty good numbers. But we'll grow by about 5,000 customers over the next 18 months or so.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That's
it's gonna
incredible.
be
And
crazy.
how do you what is your guys' game plan to scale properly, right? Like a lot of companies come in and they scale too quickly, and then the processes and systems aren't caught up with the amount of demand or the amount of employees that you have on staff. And so how are you gonna manage 100 new sales reps and make sure that you guys maintain that quality of service that has gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, so there's always a challenge, right? And that's kind of where out the gates, that's what our game plan was on day one. And then we ran into some things that we'll probably talk about, but we changed our complete game plan. And I think that's allowed us to really build a foundation and get our systems in check over the last 4 years. Whether it's from like, hey, how are we going to do deployment? How are we going to handle customer service? How are we going to handle underwriting, and building our systems and testing our systems to make sure that we were ready for like this jump. And it's not a huge jump for us, but it is a little bit of a jump and a little bit more of a challenge on dealing with so many outside sales reps. So we've been testing those systems and getting all the SOPs built out, getting the right people in place, hiring a few extra people beforehand that probably aren't super busy right now,
Mm-hmm.
just because we don't have all of these new accounts coming in quite yet. But we want to be ahead of the game a little bit, so they understand like all of the movement. Like, hey, how does the deal flow through phase 3, and how do we get it out same day? How do we get this approval done right away? So we have been testing those systems for 4 years. Now, are they perfect, and are we going to have to make adjustments? I'm sure we are, but we've got our team all on the same path. Like, hey, this is what we want it to look like. This is what it looks like right now. But let's meet in 2 weeks after we brought on 5 more reps and they've brought on 20 more deals, and make sure it's still staying the same. And so we meet consistently to make sure that the reps experience, the customer's experience is all good. And if we need to make an adjustment, the nice part is we're not this massive company. There's so much new tools out there that make operating this type of business or all sorts of businesses a lot easier. And so we just have to leverage those tools, and then on the fly, like if we need to make an adjustment, it's like I said, we're not this massive company that it's going to take 2 months to make the adjustment. It's going to take us a day or two to make these adjustments and get that thing figured out.
No, that's smart, because all too often when companies scale, owners and leadership team aren't the systems aren't in place. They're not prepared for the demand that comes. And what happens is quality of work suffers, customer service suffers, and the owner ends up wearing 10 different hats, putting out fires all day. And they go from being on the proactive side of things to being on the reactive side of things. And then it's just this never ending loop that you get to a point where you start a business, anyone starts a business to run the business and to have the quality of life and the freedom that owning a business provides. But all too often, the business ends up running the owner, right? So I'm glad that you guys are taking a slow approach, and you understand that it's going to have to be adaptable every step of the way.
Yeah, like probably a year and a half ago, I was wearing 37 hats, doing absolutely everything. Wasn't necessarily stressed to the max because the business was doing well, but was probably a little stressed on everything that I was doing. And then we started to really build out our team and just got some like really quality employees on that are awesome, that just took so much weight off my shoulders. And now it's like I couldn't imagine going back to that. Like these guys are amazing.
Yeah, man. It's you can't achieve a great vision without great people. And as an owner and a CEO, sometimes the hardest thing is to delegate. And that's what separates the good from the great, is the ability to delegate, to trust people to do something as good or better as you do it, and to let go of those responsibilities. And that's the only way that you can go from 1 million to 100 million to a billion, right? So along those lines, Blake, what are some lessons or things that you learned when you reflect back at when you started phase 3? What are some things that you maybe would have done different?
Yeah. So, I mean, out the gates, I think some of the things that we quickly had to adjust to was we needed to create revenue, and we needed to create revenue fast. Like we walked away from big salaries, and like both of us have young families, and didn't want to like obviously change our lifestyle a ton. So the one thing that I would give people advice on is not everything has to be perfect. Like you don't have to have the perfect website. You don't have to have every marketing slick. You don't have to have your social media looking beautiful. Like all of those things will paralyze you on what really matters at the beginning, to going out and creating revenue. And so that's the thing that we did very well, was we didn't have anything perfect. Now, the thing that we would definitely change is maybe we could have tried a little harder in some of those things, because we didn't document any of the startup process. Like we are just starting to do like some of our social channels. Like we have done nothing. We've spent zero on marketing the last 4 years. And so those pieces we could have easily documented and started posting. I mean, it wouldn't have been perfect, but a lot of that, and a lot of it would have been really cool to look back at now. Like, hey, like that's where we started at. Like we were in our home offices, like slinging terminals out of our office. I'm in downloading terminals. We're on the ground downloading devices while we're driving places on hotspot. Like those would have been cool to look back at now. But yeah, those are things we didn't do that I wish we would have done.
Yeah, I love what you said about just things don't have to be perfect. Just get it out there. Just do it. Because you're right. Sometimes founders have this paralysis analysis because they're overthinking and they don't want to put something out that may not be 100% perfect. And you learn by putting something out and then seeing how your customers respond to it, right?
100%.
Like you're never going to know exactly what's going to work if you're just holding on to it, conceptualizing it, playing all these scenarios in your head. Like you got to put it out there and get feedback. You put it out there, get feedback. Okay, I'm going to improve this. Put it out there again, feedback. I'm going to improve this. Like that is the way to grow.
Yeah, like 100%. Like you've started your podcast, you're 5 episodes in or however many you are in. Like when you get to episode 100, like you're going to be so much better at this. And like that's the thing, like we should have started doing that a little earlier and we'd be so much further ahead right now. And we'd had a lot of really cool content just kind of showing the growth mode of where we've come from. So those are things that we probably should have done a little bit more, but also don't let it like paralyze you. Like, hey, like a business can't run unless there's some revenue. So let's go out and let's find some revenue. So
yeah. Well, I would love to see a picture of you and Dustin, like the Jeff Bezos picture where he has Amazon written on the wall. I would love to see that picture of you and Dustin with phase 3 on the wall.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And so with you and Dustin, having two co-founders is a blessing. It can be really difficult. And in my opinion, it makes or breaks your company. If your co-founders are in sync and working together, ideally with kind of opposite or complementing abilities, that's when a company can really thrive. How has your guys' relationship developed, and how is it having a co-founder in the business, and what has that meant for you guys' success?
Yeah. So back to like we had both started at Heartland almost the same time in the credit card processing industry, probably within like 3 months of each other. And so we have both, and the other part of it is we've both been each other's managers at one point at the previous companies. And so we know each other about as well as any co-founders could actually know each other. Like we've worked and we've been through challenges before at the previous companies. We've had to have hard conversations with each other at our previous companies. And then we're just very good friends and our families are super close. And we know what each other's skills are, like very well. Like obviously I know like what he's really good at and I know what he's not very good at. He knows what I'm really good at. And we've got some similar skills, but we also complement each other very well. And then I think there's a ton of trust. And transparency on everything. And like, it's not difficult for either of us to go in and be like, hey, like what's going on here? And let's fix this quick. And having not necessarily a tough I don't think we've really had to have a tough conversation at phase 3 with each other. Just because we both have such a common goal and we trust each other and we know what each other's doing and we're both carrying a ton of weight, to get things done in like our specific roles. So it's been really good. I think it's been really fun. I know there's a lot of like horror stories that happen with co-founders, and we just haven't had that. And it would be hard to imagine doing this by myself without like one of my best friends doing alongside of it. And like seeing, I think the other cool parts that we see is like growing a business is awesome. And like what it allows us to do with our families. And like watching his family grow up and him watching my family grow up, like those parts just make you closer. But yeah, doing it all on our own now would be like, that would seem weird. It'd seem lonely. And even in the early days when, we got hit with, we didn't even know what it was, but a TRO, temporary restraining order from a billionaire on the East Coast that didn't want us to operate. And so dealing with that and like you really face that adversity together and you have to go out and then try to overcome those obstacles just to keep phase 3 going those first couple months. Like I think when you go through those pieces with one of your friends and co-founders, like you just become really close and have a ton of trust. And so it's been awesome.
Yeah. Having a co-founder, it just makes the roller coaster ride of being an entrepreneur that much easier, right? Like some days you wake up and things are just awesome. You're rolling. You're like, I'm going to take over the world. Then the next day something bad happens and you're like, shit, what am I doing? this whole thing's going to fail. And so having someone to help you kind of navigate those waters is so, so important. And I think from the outside looking in at you and Dustin, and as you touched on it, like your guys' ability to be open and honest with each other is probably what's helped you to avoid having to have like super tough conversations, because you guys are just open and honest every day. Like if you see
Yeah.
something, you say it. There's no hesitation. And
Yeah.
that is where a lot of times leadership teams fail, is they're not open and honest. They hold on to things. Then grudges happen. Then dysfunction happens. And then it's a huge mess. But you guys' ability to be best friends and to just say what's on your mind and not be afraid to offend each other because you know you're brothers at the end of the day, like that
Yeah.
is where the gold is.
Yeah. And like, our wives will make fun of us sometimes because like we've had the conversations where he's like basically like super mad at me, and it's like almost dealing with like my wife when she's mad at me, because then I'll have to call him up and I'll be like, hey Dustin, like I still really like you, like it's gonna be okay. But like we have that relationship where like we both have made mistakes, like and we've screwed up and it's cost the company money, but we're upfront about it. We're like, yeah, I'm an idiot. I did this. It's stupid. This is how we're gonna fix it. Blah blah blah. And I think that part's just made it super easy and close. Like we're just super transparent with each other.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome, man.
he maybe has too much trust in me on some of the crazy ideas that I have, and
Mm.
so and then I'm always just like, okay, this is what I want to do. Now you need to go make this happen from a sales perspective. And he's just always like, okay, like I can do that.
Well, you haven't failed him yet, have you, Blake?
Oh,
Well, I mean, it sounds like you are a classic visionary, with the big ideas, and to have Dustin to be able to see those through as the head of sales. I mean, it's gold, and that's why you guys are finding so much success. All too often, you have a visionary with all these ideas, and then he's stuck trying to see those ideas through, and then he's bouncing around from idea to idea and never ends up actually seeing through anything, and then the company doesn't find success. That's why that second person, that tag team effort, is everything for the success of entrepreneurs.
yeah,
So
yeah, and we've got our roles defined pretty well on how we operate in the business, so that definitely helps.
yes, role clarity. What I always talk about at EOS is that we map out the accountability chart, which is an adjusted version of an org chart with roles and responsibilities and obviously reporting structure. But we find that 80% of all issues comes from a lack of clarity in the accountability chart. Who's responsible for what? We always talk about, if more than one person is responsible for the same thing, then no one's responsible. Like,
Yeah,
building absolute accountability is so pivotal to creating not only a culture of accountability, but creating an environment where people know what they're responsible for. There's no gray area. And that allows them to really dive deep into their role and position, and to know what success looks like. Because if they don't know what success looks like, they can't succeed within the organization.
yeah, absolutely. Like that's been huge for us, and since we've kind of really like, especially with our team, like getting them to understand exactly what they need to accomplish, that just makes life easier. So
Absolutely. So you played a lot of football. You ended up coaching for several years. How has coaching football made you a better leader in business? I mean, what are the similarities between coaching football and being a CEO?
so I think coaching football at, especially at the college level or beyond, um, it's pretty much a CEO position. So you're stepping in, you're managing 100. Like for us, it'd be similar to like we've got 100 sales reps. College football player has 100 players on their team, and
Mm-hmm.
then he's got people that are uh, individual specialty coaches at each position. So whether that's training, operations, sales, marketing, all of that. So like if we have a receivers coach, a running backs coach, a defensive line coach, like all of those people that you have to then support and like the big thing you talked a little bit earlier on is trusting them, and putting good people in those roles, to go out and then coach up and making sure that that segment of that business is operating at a high level. And so
Mm.
that part I think is super similar to being a head coach in football. And then I think the part that I got to see like firsthand, even from high school, like high school, I had an amazing coach who's been doing it for like 25 years now and still has a ton of success at different schools. And it's like a culture thing that he's built. And then I went to Southwest, and Coach Eisnes, who's the offensive coordinator now at South Dakota State, had taken that job. And that man was crazy for taking that job, right? Because they were kind of a hot mess. And just seeing like the culture shift that he had there from, you know, they were at the lowest of low, and how he just slowly built up like mindset, discipline, work ethic, getting the team, like good people around everyone, getting people to buy into his vision. And then also jumping into the Storm, like Riggs had put that, like the level of accountability with the Storm was at like a next level that I had never seen before. And so
Mm.
going through those three things, I saw just three guys that really, I feel like, knew how to put a team together and manage so many different personalities so well. And so that's the other part, that I think has really helped me is in football. Like the thing I wish everybody could experience is just being on a football team and what that means. And what I mean by that is like we have so much crazy political divide and all of this and that. But in the football world, like you walk into a locker room, you got this country dude from the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. You got a guy from Florida, a guy from the East Coast. You got a Samoan from Hawaii. You got a Mexican from down in Texas. And like you guys are all on the same mission. Like everyone's like giving each other crap, but they're so tight and connected. And there's just none of this disconnect. And you're managing so many personalities and people from different walks of life and different levels of, where how they grew up, and the way that coaches in the football world manage all of those personalities, I think helps with what we do, because it's a similar concept. Like we've got sales reps that have come from every walk of life and found success with us. And I think that's just because we can relate so well to them, or not relate so well to them, but like I guess manage their personalities, like understand where they're coming from and why their goals might be a little different, and then setting up a plan to help them find those goals. And so that's similar, I think, to what you find in like a college football or professional football world, is just these people from everywhere. They get put together with a common goal and have to work their butts off together to get there, which is something, like I said, I wish everyone could experience it, because it's like one of the coolest environments you can be a part of.
I couldn't agree more. And you just said that so beautifully. Like that was awesome how you described it, because you're right. You have every walk of life within a football team: rich, poor, black, white, brown. It doesn't matter. And you're all coming together, working towards a common goal. You're putting aside all your cultural habits. You're putting behind your political beliefs. And it's like nothing matters besides
Yeah.
this goal of winning a championship.
Yeah.
And you're right. I wish everyone could experience that. Shoot, if the United States government
Yeah.
should adopt the philosophies of a football team, and companies that can adopt that same culture, and CEOs and leadership teams that can adopt that of managing personalities. It's really an art and a science to managing all these different personalities, right? Like some people you have to push really harder and they actually need you to yell at them. Some just
Yep.
need some love. Some just need some structure and you don't need to even really manage them at all. But understanding that each one of your people within the team is different and needs to be coached differently is the key to being a great leader. And football is it's just the culmination of all of those things. And to your point, like a lot of these business leaders across the world, if they could peek their head into how a football team operates, I think it would do them a lot of good and how to better
Yeah.
run their business.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, just since I've gotten out of football, like that was just it's always resonated with me, like how like incredible it actually is what happens in that football environment. And so it's
Hmm.
just something that I've tried to keep and really bring into what we do, with our sales reps and the rest of our team, all over the
Hmm.
place.
Well, and even you touched on it. Even just being a player and a part of a team, football taught us to be open minded. We're not judging these other people for what they believe. We're not judging them for being black, white, brown. Um, and then also adaptable. Like you're adapting to this environment, and then you're coming together and you're grinding day in and day out to become this band of brothers working towards that common goal, which sets sets us up post sports. I mean, there's a reason why all of these corporations are heavily recruiting college athletes because they're
Yep.
open minded, because they're adaptable, because they have a work ethic, because they grinded for 60, 70 hours every week of college, and they know how to be disciplined and accountable and get shit done.
Yeah.
It's
Like
pretty simple.
the discipline part of what you have to go through and like college football, like when I tell people like, hey, there's so many kids that are in high school that are talented, could go on and play college football. But once you get there, like you better love college football because
Mm-hmm.
6 a.m. workout, then you might have class, then you might have special teams meetings, then you're gonna have ND meetings, then you're gonna have to go to the training room, get your hamstrings rubbed out forever, like I had to all the time. Then you might
Mm-hmm.
have another class, then practice, then back to your team meetings to watch film of practice, then a game plan for that week, and then you're gonna go home and maybe you have some homework, and then the next day you're doing it all over again. Like if you don't love college football, I don't care how talented you are, you're not going to want to do that. So
No.
the guys that go through it and grind, that way it just creates so much discipline. Um, that's I mean that's the reason that all of these guys are getting, like you said, all these corporations are wanting to recruit these guys. Why we want to recruit them? We want athletes that are competitive, disciplined, and willing to go out there and work their butts off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you are a young, hungry guy coming out of college, like the sky is the limit. I mean, the possibilities are
100%.
endless. If you use, I think that college teams, and I guess I don't know who's responsible for teaching this, but actually showing kids their value of what they learned in football and being a part of a sports team in college, helping them to understand, hey, you've got it. Now just go apply it in another setting, in the business world or whatever they get into. Because if you get a young guy that just graduated from college getting into your business, for example, and is ready to put that same amount of effort into getting new customers that are using the system, like he could become wealthy very quickly, right?
Yeah, and that's like the other part that I think is huge about college athletes, um, or athletes in general, but I think it really hits you in college, versus high school, and then obviously beyond college was, um, like you had a ton of success, and like I had a lot of success as well. And high school, it just kind of came natural. You had a good game, whatever, went on to the next one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, in college, I think you're just always trying to find a way to get a little better because one, you're competing every day to keep your starting spot in college because there's new recruits coming in all the time. They're trying to grab that spot. But even when you have a really good game, like let's say when you torched the Gophers for like
Mm-hmm.
250 yards or whatever you had, the next day you went into film and yeah, you had a really good game, but I also bet your coach was like, hey, like on this, there was probably like two plays that maybe you like misread a coverage, where you could have had 330 yards, or you missed a block where the running back would have hit this, and hit maybe a touchdown. And so like you're always trying to find a way to get a little better.
Mm.
And I think the part that's helped me so much with like my development as a leader and as a business owner and the same things that we reflect on like weekly and how we can get better at phase 3 because like we're never there, right? You're always just trying to find and you're going back and watching film essentially to see like, hey, how can we get a little bit better all the time? And I think that's something that the athletes that are coming out that really like lock into that and are the ones that were standouts and we're trying to always get better, um, are the ones that end up having a ton of success in the workplace because they're going to jump into it. And if I was the same person that I was, 10 years ago when we got into credit card processing, like I wouldn't be nearly successful, but I've put in so much work into, you know, how to become a better leader. How do I get to know more about payments? How do I understand this? How do I become the best person at this role or industry? And so that's a huge part I think that athletes have an advantage of is they've been through that. Like they've had a great game, went back, watched it and said, okay, like there's three things that I can do a little better. Or they thought they had an awful game, went back and watched it, and the film wasn't as bad as they thought or thought. They can make a couple adjustments. And so those are really important things, I think, as people develop coming out of college in their careers, is just trying to continuously find ways to get better and better.
Couldn't agree more. And you're right. It's that growth mindset. It's that, almost never being exactly satisfied. To your point, 200 yards receiving, but yet there's 3, 4, 5 plays that could have been better. So you're not completely satisfied. It's like, okay, I balled out, but I still got
Yeah.
a ways to go.
Yeah.
And to the other point that you made is athletes' ability to receive criticism and feedback. I think that's something that we as a society sometimes shy away from. But I think that accountable people want feedback and they want criticism so that they can become their best. And as leaders, it's our duty to provide that feedback so that people know when, they could have ran a little bit harder or they could have made that sale a little differently and closed it. If they're not getting the feedback, then how can a leader ever expect anyone to get better? And all too often, leaders will fire someone without giving them any criticisms, which is one
Yeah.
of the worst things that you can do.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of just weird. Like we've talked a lot about football and like how that all transfers over, but all of those pieces are so important and they translate so well into, your career, whether you're going to work for someone, you're starting your own business, but those are huge pieces in finding success out in the workplace.
Absolutely. So, Blake, let's talk about your family. You have 3 beautiful girls. You're married to Katie. You have an awesome family. But how do you manage a multi-million dollar enterprise alongside managing your family and being that father and that husband? I mean, how do you manage it all?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is I have 3 daughters and a wife, and they are all addicted to cheerleading. And so phase 3 has to do very well because cheerleading is ridiculously expensive and completely props up the entire GDP of the United States. I'm fairly positive. And so that's the first and foremost part of all of it. But I think we talked briefly a little bit earlier, like 18 months ago or almost 2 years ago now, like I was wearing a lot of hats and had to take calls that maybe would take me away from the dinner table, or we were at a cheer comp and I might have to step out and take some calls to help some customers just to make sure we were like holding true to the customer service that we wanted to have for all these customers. But now we've built an awesome team around us, and like they're helping us out on that piece of it where we can go spend more time with our family. But the other part that's really important to us, and Dustin and I are on the same page with this, is phase 3 is going to survive. Like if our employee comes to us and it says, hey, my son's got a basketball game, a recital or something at this time, can I jump out for an hour or take off an hour early or maybe work from home for 2 hours today? Like we are never going to decline that unless like the world is burning down and we just need everybody's hands on deck. But thankfully, like that hasn't happened yet. Like that's important for us. Like if we're taking off and I'm going to watch my kids play sports or do cheerleading or do whatever they're doing, like I want our employees to have that flexibility as well, just because I think like for our kids to see us at every single event is important for them. Like they enjoy it. It makes them comfortable. We highly enjoy it. And we are so busy right now with our kids are about to be 15, 13, and 11. It's like they're in like their busiest part of their their lives essentially with all of these sports and school and activities that are going on. And I want to be present there because it's crazy, but it's probably also one of the things that we'll remember the most, for memories for our family. And so that's always just been a major priority. And then we just have to have an awesome team behind us to keep phase 3 operating. But if we take off an hour here or there, like I said, like phase 3 isn't going to collapse. Like we will survive with, you know, one of us out here and there, as long as the rest of us understand to maybe pick up a little bit when someone's out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have to say it is so cool being your friend and watching you be the father and the husband that you are, because I don't have that family yet. You know, I definitely want that in my future. I want a lot of kids, but to be able to watch you, like you are in the thick of it right
The
now with all
thick
those
of
cheer
it.
competitions. You are in the thick of it, man. And to see you still bright and happy and like loving it despite the challenges that come from all the craziness, like it's great to see. And I appreciate being your friend, to have you as almost a mentor prior to me getting into that space. So
Yeah. Like there's moments obviously where you're like, man, this is a lot. But then like you think about, man, and 10 years from now when like they're all out of the house and it's quiet, then what the heck am I going to do? So yeah,
mhm.
so we just have to really like enjoy the moment, embrace the busyness because it's fun. Like I'd rather be busy than just sitting around doing nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Doing nothing is when bad things happen. The bad habits start coming,
Yep.
right? And you start searching to fill that void, because when you're bored, you're lacking. It's a result of lacking purpose, right? And so
Yep.
you start to try to fill that void with things that likely aren't good for you, and that can be a really slippery slope. So having a family to be that focal point is awesome, and I know it's hard,
Yeah.
but you're doing a great job.
Appreciate that, man.
So along those lines, I mean, what is your motivation in life, Blake? Like, what helps you to get up in the morning and grind and be this father? I mean, what motivates you to be great?
Yeah, I think when you have a family, obviously there's just some basic motivations there. Like providing for the family is a big part of it, but I think like my intrinsic like motivation on all the stupid things that I do is just I like to do hard things and challenge myself, to see if I can accomplish it. Like just from a young age, like when I was super young, like you're listening to all these Michael Jordan takes and reading his books, and I'm watching these track guys and all of this like stuff that's going on, and all these difficult things that they're doing. And like I just would always want to challenge myself that way. And then you get into sports in college, and obviously like football is challenging, and you get in and you like for me, when I showed up to college football, I'm like seventh on the depth chart. And so like that just was kind of a like a put a chip on my shoulder. I mean, I'm obviously a freshman and like this little tiny guy. So I was on the bottom of the depth chart and just finding your way up there. And now it's more or less like my wife's like, why do you do that? Like, why are you trying to torture yourself? Whether it's going for some ridiculous run or simple things like ice baths or whatever it is. Like, I just like to do hard things. And I think the challenge of business is a nonstop challenge that you're going to deal with and you're ever going to be evolving. And so that's probably what my motivation is. Like, hey, like, how do we get to this spot? How difficult is it going to be in business? And let's see how we can figure it out. And let's go for it. And so probably just always just trying to find the next hardest thing that we can figure out how to do. So that's really what motivates me.
Well, and all of those things, you know, you said simple ice bath. I've never encountered a simple ice bath in my life, dude. um, but all of those things, I think, contribute to your success in business, because if we can get ourselves to do hard things on a regular basis, then when we step into the office or step on the football field, doing hard things is just second nature. You don't second guess it. You don't get emotional about doing the hard thing. You just step up and you do it. It's a muscle to be flexed. And
Yeah.
so it's no coincidence why, you know, you're crushing it outside of business and you're crushing it inside of business. I mean, because there's a lot of CEOs out there that aren't fit, that kind of, yes, they may be making a lot of money and have a successful business, but they're not healthy. They're eating like shit. They're not working out. Maybe their family life isn't on point, right? So it's like, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a family man, it's making sure that every pillar of your life you're thriving, from fitness to health to finances. It's not, you can't just have one pillar strong. It's having all three strong, and that is what helps people really, really thrive over the long term.
Yeah, and like a big part of it for me too was, we've talked a lot about football and everything, but I also grew up on like a farm and a ranch in the middle of South Dakota, and just some of the hard work that has to go into that livelihood that I watched my parents be a part of. And then also, like, I had to work on the farm growing up, and this is so much easier than all of that. So those things all play a part into it. But yeah, I mean, I like to do hard things. I like to torture myself a little bit. And so I think that part's fun.
I think it's fun too, man.
Yeah.
So, all right. So as we get to a close here, what's one of your favorite quotes or mottos that you live by?
Yeah, I think there's two different things on that. I think something that goes through my head nonstop, and it's been something preached like from all of our coaches, probably my parents as well, was like, when no one's watching, just do the right thing. And I think that's a separator for what we do in business as well. And whether it's, you're walking through the parking lot and you see a piece of garbage on the ground, like pick it up, throw it away. Little things like that, or, what's best for our customers. We should always be making sure that we're presenting that versus maybe another solution that we might make a little bit more money on. Like, let's always do what's best for our customers. That's really important. And then also what's in our family. But this last weekend, I was watching the UFC fights, and Volkanovski won, and he got up there and said, adversity is a privilege. And I've never heard that. I've heard like pressure is a privilege before, but that hit home so much with what we've like dealt with early on in phase 3, like some of my college career, like my first 2 weeks I tore my ACL. And, like when we started phase 3, I briefly hit on it, but like we got hit with a TRO with like a billionaire on the East Coast that just was trying to make it really hard for us to operate. And so we had to deal with that, and then obviously deal with like legal bills. And when the phrase adversity is a privilege, like we had to instantly face adversity. And that really, like, going back to like how close Dustin and I, like, it really brought out our character. Like, okay, now what are we going to do? Like, are we going to take this head on and go out and, still like work our butts off and figure out a way to overcome this? Or are we just going to curl up in a ball and, take the loss or take the L? And so that was a huge character builder for us. And I think it really helped shape our business because we made a couple changes on like what our game plan was going to be out the gates. And so that's probably going to be one of my new favorite quotes, because you're going to go through things. And when you go through them, like, just think of it as like, hey, this is a privilege that I'm going to get to go through this, because it's going to shape who I am as a human. It's going to shape how my business develops. And if I can accomplish this, then, back to the hard things, I can accomplish pretty much anything I want to do in the business world. And so that's probably one of my new favorite quotes. But my motto is like, hey, just do the right thing, guys.
Mm-hmm. Blake, that was so good. Both of those are amazing. But the adversity, well, let's start. Do the right thing. That's one of our core values at EOS, something that I try to live by. It's really simple. When, core values are awesome because it's like this handful of rules, so that when you're making a decision, you're like, am I doing the right thing? Yes or no? It makes the decision a lot easier. So I love that's one of your favorite mottos. And then the adversity is a privilege. That's just a complete frame shift when you think about adversity is a privilege, because all too often when adversity hits, we think the world is ending. We get emotional. We get frustrated. We're like, whoa, me, God, why is this happening? And to actually look at it as, no, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to build character. This is an opportunity for me to step out of my comfort zone. It's an opportunity for me to problem solve and overcome this thing that's coming into my life. Like, yes,
Yeah,
that is gold when you can actually adopt that.
you're gonna have some major growth if you take it head on. And so that's where the privilege comes from. Like, let's face this. And by the time I come out the other side of it, like, I'm going to be a better person, a better business. So it was something that just, he said it, it's like 12:30 in the morning, I'm sitting there on my iPad watching it as my wife sleeps. And I was like, oh man, like, yes. And I'm like, let's go.
This is it. Blake, it kind of falls in line. Have you seen that video from Jocko Willink that it's called Good? Where,
yes. Yep.
yes, yeah. Who hasn't seen that video? Where he's like, yeah, we can't get any funding, so we can't buy these weapons to protect us. He goes, good. Yep. This has happened. Good. It's the same thing. Like, yep. If you look at it as it's just adversity and an opportunity for growth, then your life, I think, will start to there won't be such this weight and this heaviness because you're looking at everything as an opportunity. So yeah. We got to end on that, man. You crushed it to end. Blake, where can people find you? Where can they learn more about Phase 3?
Yeah, if you go to phase3payments.com, if it's something you'd be interested in partnering up with us, check out our partner tab. And then there's a contact there form. You can find me on social media, Mr. Wilson88 on Instagram. Or if you want to look for my wife, Mrs. Katie Wilson, she's the social media star in our family. So,
hey, shout out Katie. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate the conversation. Actually, I love the football connection and the relation to business. It was fun.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Bud. Yeah,
Keep crushing it. Yes.
Yep. See you, bud.